Imagine your home, the place you know and love, suddenly taken away. This is what happened to a young man named Daniel. His city, Jerusalem, was conquered by a powerful king named Nebuchadnezzar from a faraway land called Babylon. Daniel, along with many others, was forced to leave his home and travel to this new, strange city. Among the exiles were three of his closest friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They were young, but they carried with them something powerful, their faith in God. This journey was not just across land, it was a journey that would test everything they believed in. Upon arriving in Babylon, the king had a special plan for the brightest of the young exiles. He wanted to train them in the ways of his kingdom, to teach them his language and his customs. Daniel and his friends were chosen for this special training. They were even given new Babylonian names. Daniel was called Belteshazzar, Hananiah became Shadrach, Mishael became Meshach, and Azariah was called Abednego. They were to live in the king's palace, a place of incredible luxury. But this luxury came with a challenge, a test of their deepest convictions, one that would set the stage for all the incredible events to follow. The king ordered that these young men should eat the same rich food and drink the same fine wine that he did. But there was a problem. This food had been offered to the Babylonian gods, and eating it would go against the laws of Daniel's faith. It was a difficult choice. To refuse the king's food could be seen as an insult, an act of defiance that could lead to severe punishment. Yet to eat it would mean betraying the God they had promised to honor. Daniel knew he had to stand for what was right, even if it meant risking everything in this new and intimidating land. With great courage, Daniel spoke to the official in charge. He politely asked for permission for him and his friends to eat simple vegetables and drink only water instead of the king's rich fare. The official was afraid, worried that they would look unhealthy and that the king would be angry with him. So Daniel proposed a test. "Let us try this for just 10 days, he suggested. "At the end of the 10 days, compare how we look with the other young men who eat the king's food." The official agreed. After 10 days, Daniel and his friends looked healthier and stronger than all the others. They had passed their first test, proving that their faith gave them a strength that no royal feast could provide. Daniel and his friends continued their training, and God blessed them with great knowledge and skill. But to Daniel, God gave a special gift, the ability to understand visions and interpret dreams. This unique talent would soon be needed by the most powerful man in the kingdom. King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream one night, a dream so disturbing that it left him deeply troubled. When he woke, he could not remember the details, only the terrible feeling it left behind. He called for all his wise men, his magicians, and his astrologers, and gave them an impossible task: tell him what he had dreamed and then explain what it meant. The king's wise men were terrified. They told the king that no person on earth could do what he was asking. Furious, King Nebuchadnezzar declared that if they could not reveal his dream, all the wise men in Babylon would be executed. This decree included Daniel and his three friends. When Daniel heard the news, he did not panic. Instead, he went to his friends and together they prayed. They asked God for help, for the wisdom to solve this impossible puzzle, and save the lives of many innocent people. They placed their trust not in their own abilities, but in the power of their God to reveal mysteries. That night, God answered their prayers. In a vision, the secret of the king's dream was revealed to Daniel. He saw a giant, magnificent statue. Its head was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, and its legs of iron. Its feet were a strange mixture of iron and clay. Then, Daniel saw a rock, cut from a mountain by no human hands, smash into the statue's feet. The entire statue crumbled into dust and was blown away by the wind, but the rock that struck it grew into a huge mountain that filled the whole earth. Filled with gratitude, Daniel went before the king. He calmly explained that there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets. He described the dream of the great statue in perfect detail, and the king listened in amazement. Daniel then interpreted the dream, explaining that each part of the statue represented a great kingdom, starting with Nebuchadnezzar's own golden kingdom of Babylon. But one day, he explained, God himself would set up a kingdom that would never be destroyed, a kingdom that, like the rock, would crush all the others and stand forever. The king was so impressed that he bowed down before Daniel and declared that Daniel's God was truly the God of gods. Because of Daniel's wisdom, he and his friends were given important positions in the government of Babylon. However, their faith would soon face a test far more dangerous than refusing the king's food. King Nebuchadnezzar, filled with pride, built an enormous golden statue, nearly 90 feet tall. He then sent out a decree to all the people in his kingdom. When they heard the sound of music, everyone, no matter who they were, had to bow down and worship the golden statue. The punishment for refusing was terrifying. They would be thrown into a blazing hot furnace. The day came, and the music played. Across the land, people fell to their knees to worship the king's statue. But 3 men remained standing tall: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They would not bow down to any idol, they would only worship their one true God. Some jealous officials saw this and rushed to tell the king. Nebuchadnezzar was filled with rage. He had the 3 friends brought before him and gave them one last chance. "Is it true that you will not worship my statue?" he demanded. "If you bow now, you will be spared. But if not, you will be thrown into the fiery furnace. And what God will be able to rescue you from my power?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king with calm courage. They told him that they did not need to defend themselves. "If we are thrown into the blazing furnace," they said, "the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will rescue us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden statue you have set up." Their faith was absolute. They trusted God to save them, but even if he chose not to, they would not compromise their beliefs. Their loyalty was to God alone, no matter the cost. The king's fury exploded. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. The fire was so intense that the soldiers who threw the 3 men in were killed by the flames. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, tied up and fully clothed, fell into the heart of the roaring fire. But then, King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement. He stared into the furnace and saw not 3 men but 4, walking around freely in the flames, completely unharmed. And the 4th, he said, looked like a son of the gods. He called them out, and they emerged without a single burn, the smell of smoke not even on their clothes. The king then praised their God, who had sent an angel to rescue his faithful servants. Years passed, and Babylon was conquered by a new empire, the Medes and Persians. Daniel, now an old man, continued to serve with great skill and integrity under the new king Darius. The king was so impressed with Daniel's character and wisdom that he planned to put him in charge of the entire kingdom. This made the other high officials incredibly jealous. They looked for a way to get rid of Daniel, but they could find no fault in him. He was trustworthy and never corrupt. So they devised a wicked plan that targeted the one thing they knew he would never compromise: his faith. These officials went to King Darius and flattered him. They convinced him to sign a new law, one that could not be changed. The law stated that for the next 30 days, anyone who prayed to any god or human other than King Darius would be thrown into a den of hungry lions. The king, not realizing it was a trap for Daniel, signed the decree. Daniel knew about the new law, but it did not change his routine. 3 times a day, just as he had always done, he went to his room, opened his windows that faced toward Jerusalem, got down on his knees, and prayed to his God. It did not take long for his enemies to catch him. They burst in and found him praying, just as they had planned. They rushed to the king and reminded him of his unchangeable law. King Darius was heartbroken when he realized he had been tricked and that his law would condemn his most trusted advisor. He spent the rest of the day trying to find a way to save Daniel, but he could not. As evening fell, the king had no choice but to give the order. Daniel was taken and thrown into the lion's den. The king's last words to him were, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." The king spent a sleepless night, and at the first light of dawn, he hurried to the lion's den. With a worried voice, he called out, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" To his immense relief, a voice called back from the den. It was Daniel. "My God sent his angel," he said, "and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me." Daniel was brought out, completely unharmed. His story and the stories of his friends teach us a powerful lesson. Faith, courage, and trusting in what is right can bring hope and deliverance even in the darkest and most frightening of times.